All right, we are recording. All right, hello everybody. This is our last parent support night toolbox presentation. I am Sarah Chandler. I'm a school counselor here at Jamaica and Havasupai Elementary.
And I'm Susie Martin, and I'm the school counselor at Starline Elementary and Oro Grande Classical Academy.
And I'm Marty Miller. I'm the school counselor at Nautilus Elementary and Smoke Tree Elementary.
All right, so the first of the three tools that we're going to talk about today are the apology and forgiveness tool. The tagline for this tool is "I admit my mistakes and work to forgive yours." A sincere apology opens the door to self-responsibility and forgiveness. It takes self-esteem. When we admit and we do the right thing, when we admit a mistake. The icon is a bottle of glue. Apology and forgiveness is the glue that holds and repairs broken relationships. And the gesture is clasping your hands together as though gluing two sheets of paper together. What does it mean to apologize, and what does it mean to forgive? And using those words, makes a difference in our relationships. When we apologize and it's sincere, we build bridges, we show respect to other people, and it's easy to use these words, but it's sometimes hard to mean them. And I think, even as adults, we have a hard time really meaning these things. How many times have you just said, yeah, I'm sorry, okay, I'm sorry. And kiddos do the same thing. And so, apologizing can, even be taken as a challenge, especially if it's being said, with a strong tone of voice, with sarcasm, things like that. So apology aspect, I want, at home, you guys can discuss times that you guys have apologized. We've said it, but do we really mean it? Is it I did or said something wrong and would like to make things better? Or was it, I feel bad that you feel that way, or I feel bad that we're having this issue? And why is it hard to apologize? Sometimes we don't mean it, but we still need to own up to it. It's embarrassing to admit when we're wrong. And sometimes we feel ashamed when we're wrong. We don't even want to say anything. So, it can often help the person you're apologizing to if you name what you did in your apology. I'm sorry I pushed you when I was trying to be first in line, something like that. And what can we say to apologize sincerely? How can we say it, in other languages? And, different cultures have different ways of apologizing. So here are some examples that I just thought of. I'm sorry I did this. I apologize for doing this. I realize I hurt your feelings when I said or did this. I accept your apology. And then also, I didn't mean, to disrespect you, and I'm sorry. And like I said, different cultures have different ways of apologizing. So if you are, if you are that family, talk to your kids about how you apologize, how it might sound differently, how it might look differently between other people and other families. And the forgiveness aspect. So, how do we show that we forgive someone? What do we say or do? Different cultures also have different ways of answering this question. So what does it mean to say, I forgive you? How does saying that affect the relationship of the people involved? And what's the hardest part of forgiving someone? An example, sometimes we know the person is going to do the same thing again and again and again. So it's almost like, why bother? And then another point, it makes us feel powerful to hold on to that anger, and it's difficult to let that feeling go. And a lot of students have that issue. They don't like to, but oftentimes they hold on to that anger and they don't know how to express it or understand how to forgive, essentially. And, oh, that's yours. And so these are things that, we can work on with our students here, and then that you guys can work on with your kiddos at home as well. And, just remember, no one is perfect. Sometimes we all need to work on our apology and forgiveness tool and really understand how our words really do affect other people.
So the patience tool is one that students can relate to, children can relate to, but I think it's very difficult. And we live in a world where everything is so easily acquired, things happen so easily, it's hard for them to understand why they can't have what they need immediately. So the tagline is, I am strong enough to wait. And I talked to students when I went in the classrooms about, if you're showing that you're patient, you don't just wait, because you can wait and be impatient. It's just, how does that look? And we talked a lot about, how would I be able to tell that you're waiting patiently? And the sentence that we used was that patience means waiting quietly. So what else can you do while you're waiting that shows that you're being patient or could help you to be more patient? And then another thing that we talked about was that we can't always get what we want. And we discussed rules at home and how those rules are set up around patience. And a lot of children have responses that, for instance, when it's time for dinner, they can't just have something to eat. Their parents might say, you need to be patient, or you need to wait for dinner. And we talked about several examples that they could relate to. The icon is a wood plane, and this is kind of hard for students to understand, but I got a little wood plane to take in to show the students what it is. So it's used to slowly scrape off with a blade small pieces of wood to make the surface of a piece of wood smooth. So someone would use it in woodworking or creating other things. It's an older piece of equipment, obviously. So now there are newer ways that people can do the same thing. But using that wood plane and with the hands, is you have to go really slow. And if you turn it one way or other, you can gouge or make a hole in the wood. And we talked about all those different things related to the tool to kind of help them understand that sometimes we have to wait for things. And we talked about waiting for your birthday to come, or waiting for a big trip, or just waiting for it to be lunchtime at school. So all of those different instances bring about patience. And then the hand gesture is to rub your hands together very slowly and gently, like you're using a wood plane, and you can feel that it warms your hands, but it's showing them, it's a gesture that we could use for students if we're trying to tell them, be patient, wait, just wait. And right now at the end of school was a good time to talk about this, because a lot of students are pretty excited right now about the different activities that are coming around. So we had a lot of real world examples to use. And I already said that we talk about that. It's the ability to wait quietly and just accepting things as they are without needing to change anything. And along with that comes other people. So if you think about students in a classroom and the student who raises their hand, and then they're not saying an answer, but they're thinking, and another student is not being patient because they want to say the answer, tell them the answer. I mean, that's a great example to use with the students. And trying to help them understand that everyone gets a turn and we can wait patiently to allow that turn to happen. And related would be tolerating things beyond our control, which means that if we really wanted to win the game, for example, and something happens and we don't win, we can't control that. That's just the way it went. That's the way it rolls. That's the way it happens. And the questions we had asked the students are like, why do you think it's in the toolbox? And the younger students, kindergarten, first and second graders, had a lot of great answers to that question. And also addressing, why is it in the toolbox? And then why do you think it says being strong enough to wait? And we talked about how patience shows strength, we have strength over our emotions and how we react and what we do, that we can control some things. So there's a lot out there where counselors work with people on what you can control, what you can't control, and many adults struggle with that. So what we're trying to do is get this across to the students now when they're young, and hopefully they carry that into adulthood. And then finally, what happens if we're not patient? And there are some great children's literature books that address what happens if you're not patient. So instead of just telling stories or having your child tell stories, which is fine, there are some literature books that have things happen to the character because they weren't patient. And there are many different examples of that, and you can search for those online if you don't know particular books. A lot of times kids like to kind of tell on the character, like, well, if he would have listened, if he would have waited, if he would have been patient, that would have never happened. And I find that those books create a lot of dialogue with kids. So we went through a lot of different examples in class with the students I did about when we have to wait, and I've already alluded to some of those. And then this is something you could do with your child at home or children. Talk about when are times that we have to wait. You just have to wait. It can't change. And so these were examples that we talked about. Standing in line at school, we did some practicing because the younger kids still need practice with standing in line and waiting for dinner. Talked about riding in a car for a long time. And then something like delaying something you want to do, like waiting to play until your homework is finished. And children can discuss that and understand, and you can help them to understand a routine and why it's set up that way. We talked about places in public, like waiting for a movie to start or sitting in the doctor's office. Those are examples where we have no control. What can we do during that time? And I spent more time talking with the students, what could we do to wait quietly? Because that's what patience is. And they came up with quite a few examples. And then the last one says waiting while your family member is on the phone. It's a different world now because not that many people talk on the phone. People can text and listen at the same time, but the old, cartoon in the head that I have is when you're a kid and you really want something, but your mom was on the phone. You didn't interrupt your mom. So we talked about other times when children that are growing up now, when they have to wait for a family member. So maybe the family member is texting somebody, or maybe the family member is doing FaceTime, or maybe the family member is working from home and they're on their laptop or their computer. So why can't grandma talk to me right now? And why do I have to wait? And it's so important that they understand waiting quietly is important to the person's job and how they're doing. So those are just different examples that we went through, and talking with your children with those types of things, which you probably already have in place, but it helps them understand again what patience means. And I talked about this earlier, I kind of jumped ahead a little bit, but what can you do while you're waiting? So these were some ideas that students had. These are ideas that came with our curriculum, and we talk about them, and we did some little scenarios in the classroom to help them understand and think about the place or the situation. And lots of students said read a book, and I know that some parents encourage their children to always have a book with them. You can always read. You could write, which is not on this list. Of course, a lot of the children bring up electronics. I can be on my tablet. I can be playing games, which they can be, and you can wait quietly while doing that. And then we tried to talk about ones, well, what are some that are not electronic? So if we stay off our technology, away from technology, what else could you do? And then the biggest thing is that the patience tool is not a standalone tool, so we can use other tools to help with it. And I shared the story with the students that the man who created the TOOLBOX tools was all done with the tools. He had 11 tools, and then in the literature we have, it says a second grader told him he forgot a tool, that there's one tool he didn't have. And I don't know how she described it to him, but he created patience with that. So she was saying that you have to be patient to use the tools. And then the other thing is the tools can help you be patient. And that idea would take a little while to teach the students. I didn't have the time to actually go through all of that with them, but the example I think I may be elaborating a little in the literature was that this little girl was saying that I just messed up. Yeah, courage was the last tool. Courage was the one that she wanted. Okay, sorry about that. It was courage. I mentioned the wrong one. So all the other tools that help with patience. So the idea is that patience doesn't stand alone. That holds true. That we need other tools that can help us to be patient. So the students had a great time brainstorming this and coming up with the other tools that could help you because you want to do something so badly and you can't. So how can you use them to wait quietly? And those included breathing tool, which is kind of one of the obvious, to take your breaths, to calm down and remind yourself, especially if you're really excited about something. It's not just negative, it's not just anger needs the breathing tool, but excitement. Using the quiet safe place tool. If you are waiting and you're trying to wait quietly and you're struggling with that, you could go to your quiet safe place. We discussed maybe you're at the doctor's office. Your quiet safe place is to go to the ocean and relax. Take some deep breaths while you're there. The listening tool helps with patience because a lot of times people are trying to explain or tell us something that is related to us being patient. And then apology and forgiveness tool. So if you have an interaction with someone that is not positive and you want that person to get in trouble for cutting in line, for example, using apology and forgiveness tool first can help you be patient before that happens. So I did have time to go through with the students that these tools can help you wait quietly, emphasizing always patience is being strong enough to wait, but wait quietly. And then they could see how the tools fit together.
And the very last tool that we'll talk about is the courage tool. And the tagline is, I have the courage to do the right thing. And you'll notice right in quotes because we have to each figure out for ourselves what the right thing is in different situations. So the concept is about having that inner strength and bravery to do the right thing, even when it's difficult or maybe we don't want to. So sometimes when we feel troubled or by either something that's going on ourselves, or sometimes we're seeing behaviors from other people that we think are not okay, it takes courage to use this tool. And especially when other kids are not using any of their tools. And we help the children understand to have courage, that this comes from the Latin word cor, meaning heart, and that it takes courage to follow one's heart. Again, especially those really difficult situations, those new situations where it feels hard and scary. The icon is the hanging lamp, which you should see on the slide here. I was always told as a child it's called the trouble light. I don't know why it's called the trouble light, but the hanging lamp works too. And it is used to remind the students that I talk to them about like what it feels like to wake up in the middle of the night and it's dark and you hear something, or you need to get up and get a drink of water. It's kind of scary when you first wake up and it's pitch black and you can't see your way around. But if you get that light out and you shine it or turn some type of light on, that helps us see the way and gives us bravery then to carry forward with whatever it is we needed to go take care of. So the courage tool is used when we're afraid or something scares us or is difficult, and that lamp illuminates that darkness and gives us the courage and the bravery to either say something or maybe do something in those difficult situations. The hand gesture is you just kind of take your hand and You just place it over your heart, or you could tap gently a couple times on your heart, patting your chest while breathing deeply, and you can just kind of remind yourself and say inside your head, be strong, heart, be strong. So that's the hand gesture that goes with that tool. And the 4 ways that we encourage the kids or explain how to use the courage tool is when we do something that we know is right, even though we might be afraid because we might be worried somebody's going to make fun of us, we might make a mistake, other people will see us maybe failing right in front of them. So courage is when we do it anyway because we know it's the right thing to do, irregardless of what maybe the outcome will actually be. Also, when we don't do something when we don't do something that you know is wrong. So even though like somebody might be pressuring the student to do something wrong, we don't do it even under that pressure, because the right thing is to not maybe join in those kids who are throwing rocks at other kids or calling names or something, because we know it's wrong and we stand up and say, I'm not going to do that. Also, when you stand up for what is right, even if you stand alone, which is difficult for a lot of kids when there's lots of peers around and there's a group, and you would be the first one to maybe speak up, or maybe you have a very different opinion about a conversation that's happening and you're the first one to be brave and say, you know what, I actually have a different opinion or a different view, and you share that with the other kids. Then also just to express yourself. So even though some people might disapprove, so sometimes we know when we say something that's our opinion, and we even know we might get some type of feedback, or other people might openly call us out and say we're wrong or disagree, but we express ourselves anyway, because again, we know in our heart what is the right thing to do. And then there's a couple quotes that I think are kind of fitting, especially for kids and things they can relate to. So one is from Dumbledore, from Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, is it takes a great deal of courage to stand up to your enemies, but even more to stand up to your friends. And of course, that can be broken down further and explained to the kids how, you know, sometimes you can stand up to enemies or bullies. Maybe that comes easy for some kids, but oh boy, standing up to your friends when they're all pressuring you to do something you know is wrong, that takes great courage for some kids. And then I also liked from Pocahontas, Grandmother Willow's quote, sometimes the right path is not the easiest path. And I know as adults, we've all experienced what it's like to maybe take that right path. And we know it's going to be a long journey and it's not going to be easy, but we know it's the right one, so we take it. Some tips for home. So how can courage be useful for parents and guardians? Well, you can share experiences with your child about when you were scared, but that you did the right thing anyways, and give them some real life examples. It could be certainly when you were a child, or it can be something more recent. Talk to them about how did it feel afterwards? Were you glad you followed your heart? And kind of open that conversation with your child. Also, share an experience where maybe you did not use your courage tool. I certainly know I've missed opportunities, and later I didn't feel good about that. And I knew I should have done something or said something or spoke up, and I didn't. And I wished I had. So talk to your child about how, even though it's scary to use your courage tool, the other option is you don't feel good if you didn't use your courage tool too. So kind of talk about those differences. Also, you can certainly share about a recent situation where you had to be brave or courageous. And it can even be over some real life kind of big stuff. We as adults deal with a lot of life struggles that come at us, financial struggles, death and divorce in families happen. You might have to make a difficult life decision about a job or moving, and explain to your child how, even though you might have felt vulnerable or fearful, you found some courage, and explain to them how you did that and how did you come to make the right decision. And so those are really great personal examples that kids can see going on around them, or maybe they're a part of, and that when we do the right thing, it empowers us. And last, again, it can open up a conversation. Ask your child what makes them fearful. And I don't mean like, sometimes I've asked kids and they're like, snakes and spiders. I'm like, okay, I'm afraid of spiders too, I get it. But I'm talking about things that make you fearful, like those speaking up, or those scenarios that happen that kids get involved with that might make them feel vulnerable or scared and or pressured. And so what are some things that might be going on right now for them, or just recently occurred, that something that was going on that they knew was not the right thing to do, and then what did they do about it? Or if they're in the middle of it, what maybe advice do you have for them to how they can use that courage tool? So that does conclude the 12 tools. This, as Sarah said, is our fourth and last parent workshop. So please feel free to reach out to any of us school counselors now or in the future. Obviously, school's about done this year, but even into next year, that we can provide you resources and additional information on the tools. It is a big deal to us to try to connect and communicate with our parents and guardians and our community, because we really want to teach the kids these life skills. As Susie mentioned, you know, we want some of these lessons to be learned early so that they don't maybe have so many struggles as they grow into middle school, high school, and then eventually adulthood. So remember, as adults, we need these tools too. I can tell you that some of these tools come really easy to me, and some of them I'm still working on a little bit too. So it's okay to be honest with your kids that we haven't mastered all 12 ourselves, and that sometimes we need these tools too, and we make mistakes. So let's work together. We want to partner with our parents, community, and staff here at the school to teach these tools to the kids and encourage them to use them when things are not going their way. So when we have conflict or hard times, we want to teach the kids to be problem solvers and use these tools that they have in their toolbox. So thank you everyone for watching our video.
Thank you.